It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Good morning and welcome to Great Day Houston. Is it really the most wonderful time of the year? Besides the natural hustle and bustle of the holidays, many people have a lot of emotional stress because their family is not the Hallmark card. From how to tell your family you won't be home for Christmas to being back home with the people you left for a reason, our first guests are here to help us establish boundaries and minimize triggers so the holidays can be memorable for the right reasons. Joining us to answer your questions are licensed psychotherapist Ty Lerman with Southwest Psychotherapist Associates and licensed therapist Dr. Emily Jamea, Clinical Director at Revive Therapy and Healing. Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, can I just tell you, my palms started sweating when I started seeing the Christmas decorations go up at all the malls and everything, and that was like in September. But anyway, and then the big sale, and then I see the sales at all the crafting stores. I'm like, I have to buy more ornaments. I have to. There's a half price sale, and I'm like, but my tree is already decked out. I can't put one more thing on it. Naturally, this time of year brings up some emotions for a lot of people. And Ty, I was talking to you earlier. You said that there are key points around the year where people make appointments and have to get in.
Yeah, we're coming off of the curve of one of them when it's the restart of school, and we see a surgence of parents and students coming back in. But then immediately after the holidays, people need like a time to decompress and go, holy wow, what just happened?
Yeah.
And to reconnect a little bit.
Yeah, and Emily, a part of that, of course, is that when you look at all the images out there and the songs and there's part of it is we love because it's the warm fuzzies that we grew up with, but part of it all is this artificial idea of what it's supposed to be.
I know. I think it's so important to remember what this season is about, and it's about coming together. And to your point about what we see out there in the media and social media, especially, I think adds so much additional stress and pressure to having not just to deal with your family or maybe coping with the fact that your family isn't perfect, but now you have to have a theme on your cheese tray or an Instagram-worthy table spread. And so people,
is your charcuterie perfect?
Yes, I put a poll out on my Instagram yesterday just to kind of see what people were feeling about the holidays coming up, and I was so sad how many responses had to do with having to be perfect, that it needs to look perfect. And so my first piece of advice is stay off social media. And green bean casserole does not look that beautiful, but it tastes delicious, and that's what we need to remember.
Yeah. And then of course the other thing is, as we always say, you can choose your friends, you don't choose your family, but you got to figure out how far you can go at certain things. And the part of the problem is when you have these heightened emotions like this to be perfect or to have this great time like the Hallmark card, is that there's what we call family trauma. There's and we never get rid of those things. What happened growing up kind of is set for life until you deal with it.
Yeah, and when we separate during the year, many times people are out of state, out of country sometimes, and we come back, and all of those things sort of come back. We default back into our normal family dynamics, even though we've had a lot of time apart, and it's a lot of stress. We relive some of those traumas sometimes when we come back together. So it's important that that we're intentional about creating some space to be able to process some of that, or not. Be intentional about not choosing this moment to process our trauma during the holidays.
Right at the you just blow up Christmas right at the dinner table right there. All right, we have several people who have some questions for you. Megan says, this is our first Thanksgiving Christmas since we got married. We planned a ski trip for Thanksgiving and are heading to a friend's wedding for Christmas. Both our parents are so mad they aren't speaking to us. How do we make them understand that we don't love them any less and have the right to establish our own traditions? That's kind of like a parent's last moment of holding on to their kids. You're coming home for the holidays. Right?
I know. It's so hard, I think, especially when you end up having your own children. That's another time where people start breaking some of the family of origin traditions and establishing their own. And I think it starts with just a conversation about that and honoring the traditions that you had with your family of origin and talking about how there is sometimes an individuation process. And
explain what individuation means.
So individuation means kind of discovering who you are apart from your family of origin. And part of that is creating some of your own traditions. I do think as much as possible, it is nice to come back together periodically, but that might not be around the holidays. And so maybe talking to their families about doing a big family reunion another time of year, or a family vacation all together where they can really be with each other in that way and create memories, maybe not in the exact way they did before, but in a new and also exciting way.
And one of the good things they did is they actually told their parents, right?
They did sell it.
But now what they're bothered with is the fact that their parents are mad and won't speak to them. Who's the parent now?
And that's hard for parents too. It works on the other side of parents letting go a little bit, that their kids, it's truly like the empty nest, and the nest is now empty during holidays, and it's really acute right then.
Yeah, well, they got married, so they're grown. It's been empty. That nest's probably empty for a while. I say the in-laws, y'all get together and go to Hawaii, have a good time without the kids. That's
There you
what I
go.
say. All right, Cassie. In our divorce decree, my ex-husband has our 8-year-old son this Thanksgiving. The problem is he will be out of the country for work. He says our son will be fine celebrating with his girlfriend and her family, and he would like for them to get to know each other better. How do I make him understand how ridiculous that is, no matter what the decree says? And we see this oftentimes, that people don't go that extra step in the language. If this parent will not be around, that it defaults to the other biological parent, right? Or so this is so hard. Because he has the child, but she's like, but it's my child, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. I hate when I see this happen in divorces, where they kind of, try to stick so finely to the letter in the decree, when, at the end of the day, I imagine an 8-year-old little boy probably wants to be with his mom during the holidays. And so my advice to her would be to share this segment with your ex so she can hear it from us and not from you. That, honor the fact that you are completely open and you want the boy to establish a relationship with the new girlfriend, and that in and of itself is not a problem. But at the holidays, it's probably best, I think, that he be with his biological family.
All right. And I don't know how long he's been with this new girlfriend, but that brings up another situation. How do you handle that, like when you, because there's so many divorced families, when you introduce, especially young children, to someone you're dating? Is there a rule of thumb? I know it's not a perfect amount of time, but a rule of thumb or some questions to ask yourself?
I think much like you were saying before, it's important to have these kind of conversations. Sometimes it's literally in the divorce decree of not bringing people around, but sometimes it's just a conversation with your ex and your kids' parents about what feels right for us. And every relationship is going to be a little different. So I think it's important to just talk about it.
And there's another issue that a friend of mine had last year where her ex-husband was dating someone, and the girlfriend bought her child a Christmas gift. And she was like, wow, quite an expensive Christmas gift. Are we trying to bribe my son's love here? I'm like, so those are things that I guess the parents need to talk about too.
Right.
What's acceptable and what's kind of crossing the line. Of course, if she was buying like a Range Rover or something, I'd be like, I like her. Okay, anyway, Miguel. Every holiday when the family gets together, my sister instigates a fight, no matter what. She always finds a way to bring up how she was the black sheep, which is a lie. How do we get her to stop playing victim and just play nice at the holiday table?
We were just talking about that trauma.
Yeah,
we were just talking about
that's right, bringing it up again. Like she's looking for, it sounds like to me like, as not a professional psychotherapist, but it seems like when people do that, they're almost looking for a resolution that never came.
Yes, and again, the holidays are not the time to do that. The holidays are already so stressful.
But it has more impact, right? It has more impact when you're
does.
supposed to be perfect. Now I'll make my case so it's the complete opposite. I can get your attention.
It absolutely does. And frequently it's the only time that the family is all together at once. We aren't real great about doing that throughout the year sometimes. And so the holidays is when everyone comes together, and it's the greatest opportunity to try and get that resolution. It's the same reason I tell folks not to make big announcements during the holidays. That's not the time to announce your wedding or a new child or whatever it may be. Let the holidays just be the holidays.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the question is, how do I get her to not do that? And the answer is you don't, because you can't control what other people do. All you can do is control your own reactions. And so I think some basic mindfulness techniques are really useful during the holidays. And so my favorite one is kind of practicing what we call spacious presence, where you're present with maybe a comment that she makes about having always been the black sheep in the family, but you try to keep a little bit of an emotional distance from that comment and just take a really deep cleansing breath and be non-reactive.
Take a deep cleansing breath and say, could you pass the gravy,
Exactly.
please?
Sometimes the best way to squash the best way to squash it is to just not react.
Taking a poll at the table, everybody. Deep fried Cajun turkey or basted and baked? Which one? Which one? All right.
Exactly.
More answers to your questions after the break, including how to confront someone who's always regifting the gifts you gave them. We are back with licensed psychotherapist Ty Lerman with Southwest Psychotherapist Associates and licensed therapist Dr. Emily Emily Jamea, Clinical Director at Revive Therapy and Healing, and they are answering some of your questions before we head off into the holidays. All right, Ruth has this question, and a lot of people are experiencing something kind of like this. Our mother was the glue to our Thanksgiving and Christmas celebrations. My 3 brothers and I always made it to her house with our spouses and kids. She passed away this year, and no one feels like we can do anything because it's too painful. Should I let this year pass or insist on everyone coming to my house to keep the tradition going? I feel like we'll drift apart if we don't meet this holiday season.
This is such a tough question. My inclination is to insist. And the reason is, I think, of course, everybody grieves in their own ways, and you can insist, and there may, at the end of the day, be people who say, I just can't do it, and of course, you have to respect that decision. But they say my brothers and the kids, and so I also think about the cousins being together, and I think one of the best ways to process grief and to heal is to find magic and light, which is easy to do when there's a ton of kids running around.
And that family is a family in part because of that mother,
exactly.
Right? And so she's in a large sense still there. If you look at the sum of all the parts, she's still there. And
it's her legacy.
Yeah, maybe keep her chair right there at the table, light a candle, and then say a prayer, right?
Right.
And I think it's good to let that be the start of something, creating something new. Like we talked before about creating new traditions, and I think sometimes when the torch goes out in one place, we have to relight it in a different way.
Yeah.
And then that would be a great opportunity to be able to do that, especially for the kids.
Yeah, and the hard part is it's going to happen again and again and again, and that's what part of life is. Yeah. All right, Sarah says, every year, something completely different here. Sarah says, every year my group of girlfriends has a jingle happy hour and a gift exchange. Last year, one of the ladies gave the gift I got her last year. I didn't say anything, but it's been eating at me all year long. We'll meet again in a few weeks. Should I let it go or call it out? And the hard part is that you wonder, is she doing it, is that a little passive aggressive on purpose? Does she really not remember that you gave it to her?
It's impressive she hung on to it for a whole year.
Well, I have friends who have a regifting section in their house. Oh yeah, there's like, okay, won't be using that, but somebody will enjoy it.
If you're going to regift, you have to keep clear notes.
Put a Post-it note on it.
Exactly.
This came from Carolyn. Don't regift to Carolyn.
Right.
I think it depends on the situation. If it's just a very casual sort of gift exchange sort of thing, just let it go. This is not a big deal. Pick and choose your battles. But if we're gifting Range Rovers, then
that's right. Yeah. Okay, Brad, my girlfriend is a very private person, but I want to propose at Thanksgiving dinner with both our families together. Her sister says she would hate that and it should be a moment just between us. I think she's just jealous that the spotlight isn't on her. Am I overlooking something here? This is the first time our families have all gotten together, and this could be a way to bring them even closer together.
Yeah, I mean, Ty, you kind of mentioned this earlier about how you have to exercise caution when making big announcements around the holidays. I think there's a way to turn this into kind of a hybrid situation. I think that I see the benefit of seeing this as an opportunity to celebrate together. That doesn't mean the proposal itself has to happen in front of the entire family. I think my advice would be to make the proposal itself private.
Maybe between the main dinner and dessert, say we'll be right back.
Exactly.
and then come back and go, hey everybody, before we serve dessert, we got something sweet to tell you.
Just let you know.
Yeah. So that's the hard part. But yeah, he did touch on something that almost is like you have to get that out of the way, because in the future, if they do it, first of all, hopefully she says yes, right?
Right.
But in the future, he's already having some issues with a possibly future sister-in-law. I think she's just jealous that the spotlight's not on her, right? So
it's a toughie situation.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Okay, so Brad, I'm just thinking between the main meal and dessert. Okay. Jasmine says, I wish my mom would stop rehashing every stupid thing I did growing up. She's like the ghost of Christmas past. I had a drinking problem that started in high school. I'm now 38 and have been sober for 13 years. My mom still makes jokes about checking my drink to make sure there's nothing special in it. I'm tempted to spotlight what's constantly in her glass, but don't want to make things worse for everyone else. Oh, there's some family stuff going on.
There's some family stuff. Yeah. I think this is just kind of standard boundary stuff. Like certainly pointing out somebody else's flaw to address your own flaw is probably not the best approach. But being able to say, Mom, it really hurts me when you continually bring these things up. That's part of my history and was a hard time for me. And I'd really appreciate if you didn't do that.
Yeah. And I wonder who else among the family can stick up for her. And do the, hey, okay, Mom, we all went through this together as a family. It was a hard time, but she's through that now, so let's just keep looking forward. forward.
Exactly.
So finding your advocates
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
family to help
Because
with it.
otherwise, Mama, we're gonna have to start looking in your drink. Okay. Amika says, my mother-in-law always gets a gift from me and her other daughter-in-law. Okay. In the past, I have gotten cookbooks, fancy peanut brittle, and expensive face cream, but it says sample on it. No, mama-in-law, stop that. Okay, meanwhile, my sister-in-law got an 18-karat gold necklace, a gold charm bracelet, and a diamond ring or heirloom that's been in the family for 3 generations. Should I ask why? I'm actually the daughter-in-law that lives the closest and shows up when they need something.
I was thinking a lot about this question, and I think what comes up for me is kind of the phrase fair is not always equal, and I'm just wondering what the broader context is.
There is a broader context.
There's got to
sure.
be a broader context. I wonder, I think of love languages. Does maybe the mother-in-law just really values the quality time that she gets to spend with the daughter-in-law who's in town?
And
but
thinks
because
peanut brittle is enough.
Right, and maybe because she doesn't get that with the other daughter-in-law, she's somehow making up for it, or maybe there is a difference in their incomes. Maybe the one that lives here can afford to buy nicer things for herself and the other one can't, and so the mother-in-law is compensating in some way. But I think, considering maybe everything is pretty equal otherwise, and it's really bothering her, which I can understand why, I would encourage her to have her husband, who I guess is the son, talk to the mom about it, and to do so relatively within the moment. Maybe like later that evening, hey mom, I noticed you got an 18-karat necklace for so-and-so, but peanut brittle for my wife, and approach it from a place of kind of curiosity, like help me understand what that's about.
And I there was a similar situation among a group of friends of mine several years ago, and it was the husband who was actually buying the gift to be from the mother. In that case, because he's like, I want it to be something good, and there's a little bit of competition in the room. As I was like, and look what my wife got, brother. So that's tough. But what all this speaks to is that these are all questions that people had. There's always more to the story. You don't have the complete story, so we gave them some advice to start with, which is the reason why when you come in for therapy, you come in and it's like a marathon, not a quick race, right? And so to get to the other end and to be whole. Thank you two so much for coming in this morning and starting off our holidays. Okay, it can be the most wonderful time of the year. It's just all relative as to what wonderful means. All right, to connect with Ty Lerman and Dr. Emily Jamea, visit greatdayhouston.com and we will connect you to them.